All right.
Hello.
Hi, and welcome to
Buenavidaroute.
Buenavidaroute. Today we're very excited to be talking to Veronika. Veronika is a mastermind behind doing e-cars
Mm-hmm.
and recycling lithium batteries as well, right? So I'm very interested in doing that because any of us that live small and have a battery bank of some sort would be very interested in knowing how to do that as well. So, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you and what it is that you do?
Of course. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. Very excited to meet you. Yeah, so my name is Veronika. I am from Austria originally, same place as Arnold Schwarzenegger is from. We grew up 10 minutes apart from each other. I didn't pick up this very heavy accent, though.
Yes,
Don't worry, I
he
had an
still
accent
has it
too.
after so many years of living here too.
Yes. And I moved to the US a little more than a year ago, and I started my own company, which is called Electrified Veronica. And it's a
That's
social
impressive.
enterprise. So 50% of the profit I'm making goes back to the community. And the topics is all about electric vehicles and renewable energy.
Wow.
And why is that? It's my background, in the corporate world is I worked on in the automotive world, in the corporate world with car makers, with battery manufacturers, with recycling companies, and kind of got into this and was very fascinated by the battery. So I developed a passion for batteries and decided to start my own journey. And I'm mainly doing consulting work, so in the industry, but also working on lots of fun projects and with the main point to also share all that. This is why I also have a YouTube channel and do lots of social media stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun.
Did Why was it that you couldn't do this in Austria? Why did you decide to move to the US? And you currently are in Wisconsin, if I'm not
I am
mistaken?
in Wisconsin. I don't see mountains anymore like I used to in Austria.
Right. Yeah, Wisconsin's
But-
pretty flat.
so my husband is American. So
Okay.
actually was a change in private life that brought me to the US, if you will.
Okay. And is he also in that industry? Because I believe we've seen them
Yes,
on the videos,
yes.
right?
We both worked for the same company before, both in the battery automotive area. And yes, he is also doing a little bit of electrified Veronica together with me. But he is more the
Okay.
battery testing and hands-on and guy, and I'm simulation and data, so that all works well together.
And for us that are somewhat ignorant on the
Mm-mm.
subject,
Yeah.
I mean, the most that we've done with batteries is we did install our solar in our rig by ourselves. So we do have some knowledge as to how that works. But obviously, batteries in general are a mystery. Can you tell us a little bit about how it is that that works in a car, and like if you buy an electric car, what are the bases of it, and what made you go instead of like buying an electric car, especially because what you're turning is a Jeep, which we all know they now have, I think, like a hybrid Jeep, not a full electric, but a hybrid. But still, you decided to take an older Jeep and turn it into an e-car.
Yeah. Okay. So where do I start now?
Batteries, yes, batteries first.
So first of all, a battery is very, very similar to a human being.
Hmm.
It's an uh, it's an electrochemical device, let's say. So there's electrochemical processes, physics and chemistry going on in a battery that kind of makes it work. And it's very interesting for me. So when I started in that field, I was surprised that we don't understand batteries so well. There are still many open topics. Why do they age? Why do they lose capacity? So even if you think about the battery in your smartphone, they get older, they get worse, they cannot hold their charge anymore so well when they're older, and the same is true for EV batteries. So actually, the chemistry that we have in any laptop, in any smartphone, it's actually the same type of battery, just way smaller, like we have in an electric car. And like I said, so it's becoming mainstream, I would say, also in the automotive industry. We are over that tipping point where really most of the people today are interested in going electric, but at the
Right.
same time, there are still many open topics. And this is why I think why I'm in that field. There's still a lot to investigate towards chemistry. What exactly, how can we make batteries that last even longer, that are better in cold environments and things like that?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I think, because we live small and we try to be better to the planet, that it really sort of kicks us in the gut. The fact that, and I always thought that it was something done by the industry to them, for them to obligate you to then buy a new product, right? Like, I'm one of those people that will try to use my phone until it basically dies on me, because not necessarily because I don't want to spend the money on a new one, although they're very expensive, but more because I don't want to throw it out and then have to get another one. And in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, okay, if I throw it out, where does that go? Where does that end up going?
Mm-hmm.
How long will that end up affecting our planet in one way or another, right? So when we wanted to do a rig and we ended up thinking about lithium because they were lighter, they hold a charge longer, they don't get damaged if you completely emptying them out.
Or you are in altitude.
Yeah. So there was a lot of factors that we
Mhm.
did that. And then, of course, it was one of the things that we thought. We had a hybrid car for a long time, and we thought about getting a fully electric car. But we also thought, well, once that life is done for it, then what happens to it? So when I found you, which I found you on TikTok, and then I sent him the video that you had about redoing the Jeep, and I'm like, oh my God, this woman is doing this. And I was like so excited.
Yeah, we get so excited. Oh, she can help us out with la
So
chata.
we were like, plus, I think what really attracted me to your videos was the fact that you were talking about recycling lithium batteries, even when the industry says they're dead.
So there are many important things now to say. So I'm a big believer in circular economy. No matter which industry we're talking about, I want our mindset to get away from, mining materials, making a product, using it, and then throw it away and don't think about it anymore,
Right.
towards something where we're like, hey, what is the status right now of this product? Can I maybe reuse it in another application? And at some point, I want to recycle it because I want to get back those raw materials that were already mined, and I want to make a new product out of it. So this is what we call the circular economy, which is possible in theory, and also from let's say a technical perspective, but unfortunately it's not done a lot in many different industries. But in my opinion, we have this opportunity now with battery electric cars, with renewable energies, and I think also our society is kind of ready for that, and more open towards something like that than decades ago. We can focus on that right now to really build a circular economy where we're leading materials in a circle. And
is it not done because it's more expensive than extracting materials raw?
So landfilling is always the cheaper option, right? If you just look at the economy. So where I grew up in Austria, landfills were forbidden like 20 years ago, I think. So it's just not allowed anymore by legislation. And this won't happen. So we have to recycle. Then, for example, coming back to batteries and electric cars, in Europe, there is really now legislation is telling the industry that as of 2030, every new lithium-ion battery has to have a certain amount of recycled material. So anybody that wants to make lithium-ion batteries for whatever application in Europe after 2030, you cannot go ahead and just use freshly mined first raw material. So there are legislations put in place to kind of avoid that. And like I said, yes, landfill is always just throw it there, right? It's always the cheaper option. But I mean, like we know, it's not the best thing to do.
I have a question for you. When this dream start, like, why you pick this profession, like being an engineer?
So I had a really good physics teacher in school,
Uh-huh.
which either you hated him or you liked him, and I loved him. And at that time, when I was, I think, 16, 17, I realized, hey, I'm good at maths, I'm good at physics. So, and I always wanted to do something that not everybody is doing. So, and then I just tried it, I started out with technical mathematics, then that was kind of too dry. Then I switched over to physics, and I stick with it, and now I even got my PhD in it. But out of curiosity, out of interest, not necessarily because I knew exactly what I want to do with it.
That's cool.
And do you feel like you've fallen into your niche now?
Wow, absolutely. Yes. It couldn't be a better niche for me. I just love it. And it's also, I can use my background a lot. It's lots of physics and, of course, engineering and all that in it. So, yeah.
And how did it come about that you guys chose the Jeep?
Gilmore Girls.
Oh, that's great. I saw that. I remember.
So, yes. I grew up watching Gilmore Girls,
Me too.
this American TV show.
My favorite TV show.
Yeah, growing up in Austria, and I was watching that all the time. And I kind of fell in love with this Jeep. And Jeeps are not really a thing in Europe.
Right.
But I always had it in the back of my head. And then I moved here, and I was like, hey, there are Jeeps everywhere. And then, being electrified Veronika, I couldn't drive a gas-powered car. I mean, that's not possible.
Right.
So, and the funny thing also, actually in my professional life and also my PhD, it was always simulation and theory that I worked on, right? And so I wanted to have something hands-on now. And there was one day, and that was a little more than a year ago, where for the first time in my life, I worked on a car ever. I installed a trailer hitch together with my husband. So, wow. And, I was laying underneath the car and kind of doing this. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of fun. And right that day, I said to Dawn, to my husband, do you think we could convert a Jeep to electric? And yep, this is how it started.
And when did you start with that? Like in what year?
So we had the idea one last year in March, I think. Then we looked for the Jeep. Then we got it last October, and last December we removed the engine. So the real hands-on work, it's probably the last half a year that we're really working on it, and we have to be done in 1.5 months. So pressure is on.
Wow.
Okay. And I know that in some of the videos, but of course, for people that are watching, they wouldn't know that because they haven't seen your videos. In some of your videos, you explain how you've gotten parts from different manufacturers. It's almost like a kit, right? And that maybe I misunderstood, but that your hope is to actually make some kits where, like, us regular folk that are not physicists might be actually able to apply to another car and turn that car into an e-car.
Yeah. So, when I started this little project, I thought I just want to do something hands-on, and why not share it with everybody? It's kind of fun. Okay. But then I shared these videos, and now we're up to episode 10, and like the feedback that I get is overwhelming from people that want to do the same. So I would say 2-3 months ago, I really started to understand, oh, well, this might be something that others want to do too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I do it, then probably maybe I can also develop something that others can then do too. So it kind of changed the whole story. And we now try to not only make it work for this specific one, but think a little bit bigger and really think ahead and try to understand how it could work for others. And there is not many people that did Jeeps, conversions on Jeeps yet. So maybe 2, 3, 4 people that I saw online. But, there is just not much information out there. So we basically really needed to do our whole research, which is really a lot of fun. And one of the main things that I want to do is like reuse as much as I can, right? So I have this old car. I want to kind of not reuse as much as I can. And also the batteries in that case, they are batteries from scrapped EVs. So they already get their second life now in our Jeep, and that's kind of nice. And for the future conversions that either we want to do kits or offer this as a service or whatever happens, I don't know yet exactly. We want to create something that uses as much used components. So to bring down the cost, of course, for everybody, but also having the circular economy thought in place.
For those of us that would be interested, are there specific cars or specific years of cars that one should look for versus like, I mean, I guess I would back up that question a little bit, because every video that we've seen have usually been older cars where like the transmission and the I don't know, where you open up the hood and you still see everything, right? Instead of like newer cars where like you open up the hood and it's all like computerized and covered by a piece of plastic and you don't really see much of anything.
Yes.
So all of the people that we've seen doing them have mostly been either Volkswagen Combis or Volkswagen Beetles.
Yeah, it's a guy called Garcia. I think
Old Mercedes that have had a lot of mostly diesel Mercedes too. So and now that you're doing a 91, which is actually what we have a 91 Toyota. I imagine that it has one of those older, not maybe carbureted, but still one of the older motors where like, yeah, it's fuel injection, but like where you can actually see all of the parts of the motor. Is there a difference of what you should be looking for? Or like if you already have something, like keep that because that's more of a possibility than like a newer car would be?
Yeah, so there is a reason why everybody is working on very old cars. The problem with converting newer cars is all those onboard computers and all those algorithms that you don't want to necessarily interfere with. So, you know, the newer the car, the more computer, right, there is. And there is many electric components also in newer cars, and all those components kind of talk to each other. And now if you remove one or more, you will for sure get into a problem that these signals are kind of expected by certain components, and it's very, very hard to make everything work and communicate again for newer cars. But for the old ones, the big plus is there was not much computer stuff and not much of this
You couldn't even have electronic windows.
Electronics and all that. So it's way easier because you then can just create your own. So this is the reason why everybody is doing that more for the very, very old cars. So I would also say the older, almost the better. So mine is 99, by the way, not 91.
Oh, okay.
19.
And then, of course, there is another big aspect. I would say our Jeep is one of the most challenging conversions that you can do because it's a very small vehicle. So you don't have much space for batteries, and batteries are heavy. They're not very energy dense as compared to gas. And if you want to have a proper range, you need space for batteries and also a bigger car. So the bigger the car, the better. Then also, of course, our challenge is off-roading and all that 2-wheel, 4-wheel drive and selectable and all that. So I could have not picked a worse car. But if I can make this one run properly, then the rest is easy.
Yeah, we saw that on your videos as well, because I thought, boy, she also has the factor in there, the fact that you have to still maintain the torque to be able to go off-roading, like rock climbing or any of that type of stuff. And she has to make sure that everything is completely waterproof, because if you like go over a river or like get into the ocean or anything like that as well.
Yes.
Because of course, most people that have Jeeps, that is the whole point of having a Jeep, that you can, that you have the torque and that you have the 4x4 and that you have the ability to take it off into the middle of the desert or into the middle of somewhere that is not necessarily your like go to work every day car.
Yes. I mean, the good thing is electric motors are very, very powerful. They're small and they don't look powerful, and people underestimate that, but they're super powerful and super high torque. so high that we actually have to electronically limit it because it would be too much for the Jeep and for the drive shafts. So that's not really the issue, I would say. Then, but like you mentioned, of course, there is this challenge to make everything waterproof, but you would need to do that with any car. So, but
Okay.
really the challenging part is this off-roading, rock crawling, just all these vibrations. You have to mount that in a way that it's just durable over time.
Mhm.
And how do you see yourself in 5 years? Like doing what?
That's a very good question. So I have a vision to build a circularity center here in Wisconsin. So it will be a technology center where we still do some sorts of conversions, but also do some research for batteries, recycling, reuse. So I want to build a little tech center, which would at the same time be also a public museum. So I definitely want, the people go there and see all that. It shouldn't be kind of private or just focused on industry and IP, but really I want to share all that. So stay tuned. It will take me some years, but that's a vision.
Nice.
I would think that it would be a great opportunity to teach lessons on how to do this type of stuff, especially for like a younger generation
Mhm.
that already grow up with like computer at their fingertips, and they can see the potential. It's almost like becoming a I don't know, computerized mechanic of some sort, right? Where
Yes.
it's cars, but it's not really like getting your hands dirty anymore.
Mhm.
The educational aspect is huge. And, also for the conversions, we want to start offering online courses and training and stuff. And, the interesting thing is this industry has moved so fast, like EV, everybody notices that, right? But it moves so fast that even the automotive industry, and I call them, the traditional companies and dinosaurs, they can't catch up,
Right.
and they don't have people that have the right education. And if you go back into university and look what is taught there, you don't find a lot of university that are teaching people about EVs, renewable energy, and batteries.
Well, probably
So
because the professors are older than the technology, obviously.
there is
So
a gap right now. And also that was a reason I kind of started the YouTube stuff. And I just wanted to share what I'm working on because I knew that there is not much out there. And I try to.
and from the point of view of like, I would think it's super inspirational for some kid that maybe loves cars and loves electronics and loves computers, but doesn't necessarily maybe have fallen in love with math or science. And once they can relate that to something else that they would be passionate about, you would think that it would open up their mind to other possibilities. Like, I was never great at math, but when I started doing baking, which is much more of a science than cooking, I realized like how much I needed it. And because it was related to something that I was passionate about, I eventually got really good at it. So,
Yes.
it's kind of that. Obviously, baking is a whole lot less complicated than like turning a car into any car, but nevertheless,
Well, but I agree with you. You never know what you like, and you never know what you're good at. And once you found a passion for something, I'm certain that you can be the best version of yourself. I
right.
would have never ever in my life thought that I would work on cars ever.
That
And
also
everybody that knows me, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" But it's just so much fun, and I just started it, and together with my husband, so he is also a huge part of that. It's just so much fun.
So
And Lisa,
Lisa from Outdoor Dash Travel says, "Hi, Sherry and Andres," and she's saying, "Nice in Wisconsin, knows less. I grew up in Wisconsin," is what she says. So hi, Lisa.
hi, Lisa.
Hi.
She's really nice.
Yeah, she's super nice. She's also very techy.
Uh-huh.
So when you say that you have to have it ready in about a month and a half, well, I guess one of the things that once I was starting to watch your videos and everything, I was questioning myself is that, especially throughout the pandemic, have you had a hard time finding all the parts and all the components that you would need to do this conversion?
Well, yes. So we waited a long, long time for our electric motor and inverter. So I think we ordered already in February, and all that stuff came in June. So the lead times are long. And we got lucky with the batteries, but definitely if you are interested in converting your car, or anybody right now is kind of fighting for batteries, so there is a shortage on that. And if there are batteries, then companies want to sell them to the big automotive industry, and not some people in
But
workshops.
basically, what you did is that you took out the battery. I don't know if, like, in the case of a e-car, it's called a battery bank. Like in the case of us doing
It's a
solar,
battery pack.
it's a battery pack. Okay.
Yes.
But you took one of those and then you're making it work for your vehicle. Yet, for what I understood in the videos, it's not like, oh, let me just take this bundle out of here and put it into here. You actually have to do something with them.
Oh,
Maybe you
yes.
can explain a little bit more in order for them to work for your car, correct?
Completely underestimated that part.
I would have done the same, I'm sure.
Here is the challenge. We decided to go with an electric powertrain at a very high voltage level. So in our case, it's 400 volts, but that's the industry standard. So with your battery pack, you kind of have to get up to 400 volts. Now, in an all-electric car, like the Mustang Mach-E, like the F-150 Lightning, whatever, you have lots of space, and you then have several modules that are connected in series to get to the 400 volts. Great. Okay. Now you take this car, and then you open this pack, and you get these individual modules, but the problem is you cannot use all of them because you don't have that much space. So I can only use half of them, which means I also only have half of the voltage.
Right.
But I need to get up there. So what we actually did is really disassemble the modules into the individual cells and really reconnected them and electronically reconnected them so we get to a voltage level earlier. So that was kind of a challenge for our conversion. But once you find a way to do it, then it's kind of okay, but it's still a lot of effort. And I think we are the first ones, I have not seen anybody that uses that type of cell. So it's basically, those pouch cells that you also have in your phones, as compared to a Tesla, where probably, it's these cylindrical cells that everybody is using.
We've seen those.
Yeah, most of the conversions that people do have those cylindrical cells. And we just happen to get those modules with pouch cells, and then kind of this whole challenge started to remodel everything.
I have a question. Jeeps are kind of slow, and but with this
changing it to electric,
it's going to be faster. How you are going to deal with that? Because going rock mountains, all that kind of thing. How you?
Well, that's what she said, that they had to bring the torque down because otherwise it's too much torque.
We definitely have to bring the torque down, but that's the good thing about all these new computers things. Let's call them that way, where you can just set a limit, and then you kind of reduce it so it's not getting too much. But in terms of maximum speed, you can't go that fast with a Jeep because of its shape. Just simply because of the shape. And I guess that's also really not the point, that you want to have the fastest Jeep in the world, but you want to have a good torque at very low speed. And this is what electric motors are perfect for. So for off-roading and crawling, rock crawling, all that, it will be so amazing. And I can't wait to do that.
So Lisa says, electric vehicles. Most compact cargo vans are now being discontinued, like the NV200, the Transit Connect, or the ProMaster City. And I think she's mentioning that because a lot of people in the nomad world live in vans, and some of these vans are their homes. Says being able to convert what is already here and now to EV, that would be awesome. Which of course is why we were so interested too, because we're in that world where, like, if we could find a way to even hybrid our vehicle, would be unbelievable for us, both on on a standpoint of like how much we have to put in gas in our rigs. And also, of course, because when you're trying to educate people to live small and live cleaner and leave no trace, the last thing you want to be is like, oh yeah, I'm teaching you all of these things, but I'm also have a gas guzzler in the back that is consuming and contaminating while we drive. And of course, is one of the things that I think a lot of us in this world of being nomadic and living small think about it really strongly, that yes, we go to national parks or state parks or all these natural areas, and we try to pick up as much trash as we can, and we try to like not consume and be very careful about what it is that we buy and etc. But at the same time, we have no option. We still have a vehicle that is our home, and so we have to drive it from point A to point B. She also says, wow, you're totally onto something, electrified Veronika. So this would work on cars that are here now. I think she came on a little bit late onto our conversation, but Lisa, basically she said that it works better on older cars than our newer cars that don't have all the computerized technology. So I think you're going to have to find yourself an older car to do this. The other thing about the conversion is, I'm thinking in a Jeep, where do you put it? Because most of the time you would have to think about having a trunk to be able to put all of those, right?
Yeah, like this is what I said. I couldn't have picked the worst vehicle because it's just so tiny.
But when you took out all the rest of the components of the motor, could you fit them into the space where the motor used to be?
Yes. Good thing is the engine was huge. And I think it was like 400 kilogram. I'm sorry about the units, but I am kilogram person. So it was very heavy. And obviously it sits under the hood and it's gone now. So all that is empty. So there is lots of space there for batteries. But we also decided to put some batteries in the back where the gas tank used to be. So, you know, underneath there is, in the back, there is space for one more module. And then maybe we want to put one, like lay it flat into the trunk. But we're not so sure about that yet.
Is that for balancing out the weight throughout the car?
So this is sized in a way that the original weight will be the same as the new EV weight. So we weighed everything that we took out, and then we were like, okay, this is how much weight we have for the batteries, and this is how we kind of sized the overall system. And with this amount of batteries, it will give us 120 to 130 miles. And you know, originally the Jeep on one gas tank could go, I think, almost 200 miles. So that's the only thing that we sacrifice. But, you know, for the applications that I'm looking at, it's enough for me.
Yeah, that's still not too bad. That's still not too bad considering that you are now not having to pay for those miles, except obviously you have to charge it, but also the fact that you're not contaminating by doing so.
And I have a question. Okay, it's something that, like, it's possible to charge with solar panels a vehicle, an electric vehicle?
As it's driving, you mean?
As a driving or something like that?
So different levels. There are some EVs that have solar panels integrated in the roof. So probably you've seen that. That would give you additionally 20-25 miles a day in very good condition, just because it's not much space, right?
Right. There's not much
space. The second option, and that's a cool conversion. Oh, that's a cute dog.
Look at me.
We had 3.
That's a cool conversion that happens in Austria. It's a Pinzgauer truck. So that's a military truck from decades ago that friends of mine are converting. It's called Project Icarus. And they are converting into all electric plus solar. And the way their solar system works is they have it on top of the truck, but then they also, because they're doing lots of camping and all that stuff and off-grid stuff, they also have it so they can lay it out whenever they stay somewhere for a day or two. And then charge their truck from the solar. And these solar panels are very interesting because they're super flexible. They're almost like a paper, but a little bit thicker, maybe like this. You can sew them onto things so it's not stiff or glass or monstrous, but it's like super flat and flexible. And so this is how it can work.
So potentially you can even have a tent and have those sewn on around the tent, and then when you pitch a tent, it would be charging your car.
Yes,
That
but obviously you need time and sun for it.
Yeah. In fact, Lisa's asking us, how long will it take to charge your car?
Yeah, so we decided for now to only do what we call level 2 charging. That means you charge it from AC power. So just from your plug from the wall, which is 110, 120 volts or 240 volts.
Right.
And if it's this 240 volts, then probably it would take me 1 or 2 hours to charge it.
Oh, wow.
That's not bad at all.
That's good.
So if you're on 110, probably
that's very slow. 8. That's very slow. But I have to tell you, so I also own a Ford Mustang Mach-E that has 91 kilowatt hours and can go for 300 miles. And we went to a cabin to a family, and we plugged it in just into the wall, 110 volts. And when you have time, you stay over the weekend, after 2-3 days, it's charged up again. So for some of those use cases, and you just plug it into your normal outlet.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And while, yes, we all understand that's not fast, but for this application, it doesn't have to be. I'm going there because I want to stay there for 2 days, right? So that works. Then, of course, then you can switch to higher voltage, 240 volts. And then what we could do as the next step is also include DC fast charging.
Okay.
It would be a little bit more expensive, but then you can go to a public charging station with DC fast charging, and then I'm done in 25 minutes.
And that was going to be my next question, if you were going to be able to charge it at one of those stations. Because when we had our hybrid, we would charge it all night at home, and then in the morning it would be fully charged. And then we would come to work, we would charge it again and be able to have charge to go back home. But one time we literally went to the pharmacy, I think for like 20 minutes, and we charged it. There happened to be a free charging station there, and we charged, and we were like, wow, this is unbelievable. I wish we had this at home.
Actually, one of my... Oh, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I mean, I just say it's so funny. It sounds so weird to everybody, that charging and charging times, and many people freak out about that. But I tell you, there is a few people where it won't work, yes, because they need to go so far and very fast, and okay. But for most of us, it is completely okay. Like, I had situations when I did lots of road trips already where it takes me longer to go into Walmart and go to the toilet and come back than charging the car.
Right.
So I really had those situations. So this time factor for many people really doesn't matter. So this is not the point.
Yeah, I think that if you're using it as your daily commute and you have the ability to charge it throughout the night, then it's really not a non-issue like it was for us.
Even for the vehicles today, you have 200-300 miles on one charge. So not many people do that in their daily commute.
Right. Almost you can have it without charge for a whole week.
I have a friend that he has a Tesla, the new one, and that one gives him 400 miles. And we went from Malibu to San Diego. That one was
with one charge.
With one
and
charge.
Came back.
And come back. And said, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me when I sit in my car and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm driving for 3 hours on a battery.
Yeah.
I remember when Mustang announced that it was going to be making them e-cars, and everybody was like, wait, that's supposed to be a muscle car. Yet I think a lot of people have the misinterpretation that you have an e-car and all of a sudden you're going to be driving like an old man. And
no,
it seems
faster.
to be faster to me than gas car.
This is why I usually let everybody that I kind of meet drive my car, and also my husband is doing the same now with the F-150 Lightning. Because people have completely different understanding of what they think an EV is as compared to what today's EVs actually are. And there is no day when I'm driving with my EV where I'm not racing somebody on the street and they're blown away. It just happened today that somebody, they were like vroom, 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 and then you're like and then I wave, and this guy was like, what the hell is that? Because you have instant torque at 0 speed. You don't need to shift something.
For the pickup truck, does it also tow like another pickup truck? And does it perform like, well, maybe your husband hasn't had any need, but like my dad's F-150 has carried, I don't know, truckloads of wood and cement and rock and dirt and you name it. Does it perform the same? His whole deal was, I'm never going to get an e-car because it's never going to do, what I needed to do for the mountain house and and I'm like, at some point they're going to have to make him just as strong, because otherwise, like, Americans wouldn't buy them. America is like built on muscle cars and trucks.
Yes. So we have our truck now, I think, for a month. So we didn't have a lot of chances yet to take it towing and these things, but we loaded lots of stuff in it. And so far everything is great, but we didn't do any, how much does the range drop when you start towing things? It is very powerful and it will, without a problem, tow anything. But of course, the range that you then have will be reduced as compared to when your truck is empty. Just like when you have a gas car, when you consume more gas. But of course, there can be drastic differences that people maybe don't want to have for their application. But you would be surprised about how amazing these trucks are today. And if you talk about mountains, the great thing is going downhill from a mountain charges up your battery. And this recuperation energy, this is also something that people don't think about, and many
I didn't know.
So the interesting thing with EVs, and this is also a reason why they are so efficient, is that the energy that normally, you brake and it's just heat that you generate, this is kind of used to, like a generator, and used to feed it back into the battery. So when you go downhill, you will see your green bar of the battery like going up again because it's charged.
So people in Colorado should really be buying e-cars.
That's nice.
What is the difference? Because I remember one of your videos also talking about the fact that you decided for it to be a shift car, a stick shift, instead of it being an automatic. So what is the difference when it comes to making that choice?
Oh yeah, in the very beginning, we thought we want to look for one that has a manual transmission, just so we would have more options, because we completely did not know what we will do with this. If we keep the transmission or not, if we keep the stick shift or not. And so we just wanted to be super flexible, and we were looking for one with manual transmission and preferably with a blown engine, but we just couldn't find one. But so that was kind of our original thought. What we did now with the Jeep, where we actually took out like the whole transmission and everything, it wouldn't have mattered. So we could have chosen also to go with an automatic transmission. And so I already have like 2 more Jeeps lined up that I want to convert next, just to do also different things. Like the next one will, for example, use a used Nissan Leaf motor, which would significantly bring down the cost. And for that one, we also want to see, how does it work without stripping down the Jeep entirely to something where you can't even realize that this is a car anymore. You've seen the videos. It's just a chunk of metal right now. Yeah. And we want to try to see if we can do more plug and play. And so that's what we are investigating next.
And if, for example, Lars wants to do something with RV, you can check it out?
Sure.
Oh, nice.
We can check it out, So of course I was expecting a question from your side, but you really just have to think about your use case. Like really, how many miles do you go every day, or do you need to go? And what is how does your day look like? Because depending
Is
on
there
that, it would be possible or not.
Is there also a possibility of taking a car with a motor like ours, which is an older motor, and converting it into a hybrid? And I say that because of exactly what you just said. Because, for instance, in our case, some days we drive 2 hours, but some days we drive 10 hours. So obviously, on the days that we need to drive 10 hours to get from like one state to another, or something of even within one state.
Mhm.
We would not be able to like stop every 120 miles to charge and then continue another 120 miles. That would not be feasible.
Exactly.
And we're not necessarily going to be in mountainous places all the time either.
And we want to travel all the way to Patagonia in
Yeah.
the future. That's another thing. That's why we need to.
Which is one of the reasons why we were like hesitant on even considering it, just because obviously in Latin America, there's still, I think, in my country is one of the few, and actually Colombia has quite a bit
Mhm.
of charging stations now, but majority of Latin America are not quite at that point where there's like a charging station every few hundreds of miles or kilometers. So in a perfect world, we even visited the idea of if there was any possibility of turning our motor into a hydrogen motor, and then we saw some scary stuff and we were like, turn around about that. But hybrid would be what I think would be ideal, especially after driving a hybrid, which gives you some miles on electric. You can recharge it while you're driving. And, obviously if you run out of the charge, then you still have gasoline.
Yeah. I know it sounds like a good idea to make a hybrid from a gas-powered car, because it's the next step, right? But from a technical aspect, it's very challenging, because you need to do everything that you need to do to make it all electric, but then also integrate the components that you have already, and you don't have the space to put stuff there. So
Right.
I didn't do anything like that yet, and I didn't think through everything. But every time that somebody asks me, I feel like this is even more complex, and I wouldn't exactly know how to solve it, which doesn't mean that's not possible, but it's more complex than just going electric.
Okay, and I have another question. When you say that you're going to be taking like the motor of a Nissan Leaf, right? Most of the time it's something that like maybe somebody crashed in it and the motor is still fine. The car itself is not good, but the motor is still fine, and so you still can use it. But if I remember one of the videos, you talking about like recycling batteries, and you obviously started at the beginning of the video of our conversation here saying about how like even their cell phones have a certain life expectancy and then they start dying out. Is there a way to take older batteries that have like served their purpose or served their life expectancy and recharge them somehow to bring them back to life and continue to use them?
So you can't. So it's not, aging is not reversible, just like with us humans. Like we can get younger all of a sudden. But it's so funny because it's so similar to us humans. We can do certain things that maybe would prolong our life, right? So eat healthy and do some sports, and actually nobody exactly knows what, right?
Right. They just guesstimate it.
And this is very, very, very similar to a battery. So we have guesstimates. We know, okay, we shouldn't charge it too much at low temperatures, and we shouldn't deplete it and leave it there for too long and things like this. So you can say, okay, and don't charge it up completely and leave it for a month and things like that. So there are certain things that you can do, but it's non-reversible. So once your battery ages and it loses capacity, which means the lithium ions that are normally traveling back and forth between the cathode and the anode, some of them are just frozen and not accessible anymore. And when we call the battery dead in an EV, it still has 70 to 80% of the capacity. That's very interesting to know.
Wow.
But that's just the automotive standard. So it has 70 to 80% of the capacity, which means you only have 70 to 80% of your electric range left compared to the beginning. And so many people don't accept that, don't want that, right? So this is why at some point they want a new battery, but it's still okay to drive. It still works. You could still go, just not that far anymore. So that's kind of the first life in automotive. And this is the reason why EV batteries are perfect for energy storage in a second life. Because you take them out from the EV, they still have so much capacity, and you put them into your home energy storage system where they're perfectly fine because the application is not that demanding. They're, just sitting there. There's not so much environmental impact in terms of temperatures, and you don't have so much charging and discharging going on. And if you do that, you can give them another 10 or 15 years. So
you can do that to store the energy that you would be doing
of solar, for example.
Okay, that's what I.
Yeah. And so the warranty of an EV battery right now is 8 to 10 years, which means within 8 to 10 years, your battery capacity will not drop below 80%. So after 8 to 10 years, you still have 80%. Then you take this battery, put it in your home energy storage. You can have another 10 to 15 years. So now we're up to 20 and more. And then, at some point, it really drops to where you only have 20, 30% of the original capacity left, which means there is not many applications where it still makes sense, but then you can recycle them. And you get these materials back. You get the nickel, the cobalt, the manganese, aluminum, lithium, and so on. There are techniques, if we do it right, that we can get almost 100% of all that back. And then you can make a new battery.
Wow.
That's
beautiful.
Okay. But that's still not happening. Like the car industry sells you a Prius, and then you 5 to 8 years down the road, which is the typical American, you end up either changing the battery or having to get a new Prius, kind of a thing, right? But what you're saying is that you could potentially take that battery out and implement more solar at people's homes, but nobody tells you this in the industry. You don't know this.
It's funny. It's not funny actually, but also the industry didn't think about it. Kind of, there was this push to EVs. Everybody wants to make the first electric cars and wants to make the best battery. But thinking about what we do with it once it's not good anymore, there is not necessarily a business behind it. And so not many people and companies looking into it, right? And also the companies that make batteries, they didn't have any guidelines or legislations on how to make them so others could reuse and recycle.
Oh, wow.
But this is now happening. So there is now guidelines coming and where you define, okay, this is how you have to make a battery so others can reuse and recycle. So there's a lot happening. I think it's moving in the right direction. We can't blame an industry for it. I think it's just how economy works.
Yeah, because they want you to consume, obviously.
But hopefully we can contribute to kind of.
Adventurous Spirit 66 asks, what's the cost of the average battery for an EV?
So you have 20 to 30% of the vehicle net cost is the battery cost.
Wow.
So it's $20,000 around, depending on the size of your car, of course. But so, yeah, it's the single most expensive component in your EV, the battery.
So that's why probably that's how they were created. Because if you think to yourself, okay, I'm going to drive a car for 10 years, and in 10 years, do I put another $20,000 into this car, give or take, depending on the economy? Or do I just go out and buy another $40,000 to $60,000 car that's going to take me another 10 years, but everything is going to be much newer, much more technology, much, whatever the situation is, because you've waited for 10 years.
Yeah. But
Which
just
is-
to be a little careful with this 8 to 10 years, I know then this sticks with everybody's brain, but it doesn't mean that every battery drops to 80% after 8 to 10 years. This is a warranty number. And from what we see on today's, there's lots of data out, they will last way longer in many cases. So just to put that out there.
50 years, no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've seen some that have lasted a whole lot longer than that, but I just think that, I mean, especially I think in the US, it's like consume, and people already think that like a 5-year-old car is too old of a car, right? So it's like they're just changing it to get a newer, whatever fancy, brighter, shinier thing it is. Just like a phone. Like I said, I'm the kind of person that will keep a phone until it like goes dead on me and I have absolutely no other choice but to change the phone. But other than that, it kills me that they make things that don't last anymore from all sorts of perspectives, right?
Yes, I agree.
Coffee makers, all of your stuff at home should not be so disposable. Computers and printers and all of that. And you just think, where is all this stuff end up going that you have no way?
Actually, it's one thing that we are kind of helping. We are helping somebody in Colombia. They are collecting 6,000 tons of plastic that are coming from Japan.
Yeah, all the waste and all the plastic waste that ends up in the ocean, the water currents end up washing it over to the Pacific side.
Yeah,
and
they are building house with this plastic.
They're turning it into bricks to build homes.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's been the longest time where it's like I almost don't want to get rid of a machine because like where is it going to end up going, right?
Yes.
And I don't understand how there isn't a bigger industry about recycling all of these materials, because you would think somebody would have come up with some sort of way to recycle them and make a fortune off of all the
problem is to make money with recycling. Especially in this industry where you don't have so much to recycle yet.
Right.
So, you have to have your processes ready, but at the same time, the majority of the cars is not even out there yet. Then the first ones are coming out there now and will be available for recycling. Think about if there is a second life too in 20 years.
Right.
I mean, there's also lots of manufacturing scrap that these recycling companies are recycling right now. But it's just this challenge that this economy is still in the process of building itself up. And then you have to sustain your business, right?
So is your hope down the road to give us kits that we can use for our cars?
Yeah, I want to definitely see what we can do. I mean, there is lots of, I mean, not hundreds, but 25 conversion companies that I found so far, that either convert cars for you. Most of them sell components. Some of them sell kits. Some of them have workshops where they do the service for you. I think it's a growing field. And we see how we can fit into this. I certainly can see myself doing more. I just need to
I would love it, because I always love the look of old cars, like
vintage style.
Vintage anything is my thing, but for cars especially, there was just so much love put into the character of the chassis of a car.
Absolutely. And even if you think about all these announcements, everybody's now going electric by 2025, by 2030, and so on. But then you look at the roads and you see 99% gas-powered cars. So then I'm also thinking, what are we doing with this?
Well, I think for us is a little bit disturbed because here in California, for sure, there's a lot of e-cars. Teslas are like everywhere. And I don't know where people are getting so much money, because it seems like it's like buying candy, but obviously they're very expensive. but I think that our vision is very askew because we mostly are here in California, and so we see all of this, whereas obviously in other states and in other countries that is not the case.
Well, yeah, I was shocked when I came to Wisconsin. Also, renewable energy, it's horrible right now. It's now a little bit kind of starting to take off that people put solar on their roof, but we are also one of the very, very first ones, I would say, in our area. But it's starting a little bit. But 90%, I think it's still coal plants. And if I compare that with Austria, where we're, I think, 80% renewable right now, and yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, I grew up in Costa Rica where it's mostly renewable, and a couple of years ago it hit to 100%. So there's no need for any petroleum to create or coal to create energy. Nevertheless, there's not, the economy is not at the point where everybody can just go and be like, oh yeah, let me just go spend 60 to 80 grand or 60 to 100 grand on an e-car. And then again, we go back to like, now what's going to happen to all these older gas cars? They're just going to become junk at some junkyard, or, it's, I don't know. To me, it obviously seems like it's something that it's going to be a couple of generations before we actually get rid of gas cars.
At least the bus, they are going to be tiny homes or something like that.
The what?
The bus.
What bus?
The bus, because you can take the motor and put it as a tiny home.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, if you had something bigger that you had more real estate to put more panels on, for sure. Okay. All right. Well, it's been. I have like so many more things that I want to. Now my brain is like, woo! But we're out of time, so no worries. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us all this information. We wish you the best of luck with the project on the Jeep and with the continuation of electrified Veronika. And keep us posted on what you're doing. We would love to just find out more about it. And whenever we're in the Wisconsin side of the world,
whenever you make it up here, we have very nice lakes here.
Oh yeah. We've definitely seen at some point.
Lisa said, thank you so much for the information.
Yes.
Of course. Of course.
Right. Thank you so much, Veronika.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Hope to see you out on the road with that Jeep very, very soon.
Oh, yes.
You wanna travel with the
I
Jeep?
might come down to California because I will now share a plan with you. So I want to get to the Gilmore Girls set.
Oh, I'm down to coming with you.
So that's my
plan. You how long I thought about. I need to move to a little town just like Gilmore Girls and open up a little cafe.
I love this.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Let's go.
And the thing,
this whole weekend we were watching another YouTube channel that Andres found.
Oh, beautiful.
It's called Trout and Coffee. Look it up. And it's this beautiful vlog of this young man and his just daily life out in Vermont, and it's so beautiful, and he's so eloquent when he talks, and he also creates music, so a lot of the music in the videos is his original music.
And the cinematography.
Yeah, the cinematography is amazing in the videos, but like for the longest on Saturday, I had it playing in the background while I was doing other work, just so that I could listen to his voice and the tunes in the videos, and it was beautiful. But
wow, cool.
He lives in one of those little towns where I'm like, I could totally do something like that. Small town America.
Yes, cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. Good night, everybody that joined. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.